Hundreds of employees out of work with no warning, as more than a dozen Panera Bread locations have shut down all across the Houston area.
This is one of 15 Panera Bread locations that's now closed and has signs like this on the door. This one saying that the menu is now very limited.
And there's 15 stores with an average of between 40 to 60 employees per store. We're all out. I've recently filed for my unemployment, which I'm sure will be approved because of the situation. However,
remember when Panera Bread was the place to go for lunch? Cozy booths, the smell of fresh bread, free Wi-Fi, and that mac and cheese bread bowl everyone swore by. It wasn't fast food, it was comfort. Served warm. College students studied there for hours. Office workers held meetings over soup and sandwiches. Families stopped in after school just to feel like they were eating something better. But today, the buzz is gone. Many Panera cafes sit half empty. The menu is smaller, the price is higher, and the magic that once made it special feels stale. What happened? How did the brand that invented fast casual turn into just another name people scroll past? It didn't crash overnight. It faded one recipe, one redesign, one bad decision at a time. So tonight, we're counting down 9 reasons why Panera Bread lost its magic, and how a simple bakery cafe that once changed how America ate ended up becoming a brand everyone stopped believing in. Number 9. The comfort cafe that lost its warmth. There was a time when Panera didn't just serve lunch, it offered a place to stay. People lingered for hours, tucked into booths under soft lighting, surrounded by the smell of bread baking. It was warm, familiar, and quiet enough to think. You could sit with a laptop, a cup of soup, and no one rushed you. That was the promised food that felt good, and a space that did too. But somewhere along the way, the warmth started to fade. The tables are still there. The soup bowls still arrive with a smiley logo on the napkin, but the feeling, the soul of the cafe has gone missing. When Panera expanded across the country, it stopped feeling like your neighborhood bakery. It became a chain, polished, efficient, predictable. The decor got brighter, the music louder, and the booths emptier. What used to feel like community turned into a brand experience. Locals say it happened slowly. A few new screens replaced the friendly cashier. The bread ovens were pushed behind closed doors. The cafe smell, once real, became something piped in through a vent. Panera used to be one of the first places that understood fast casual didn't have to feel rushed. It was a little slower, a little softer, the kind of place where you could breathe. But in the race to modernize, that pace disappeared. Customers started ordering online instead of staying. The booths that once hosted study groups now sit half empty, collecting crumbs and silence. It's not just nostalgia talking. That sense of comfort was Panera's brand. It was the reason people paid a little more. They weren't just buying soup, they were buying the feeling of belonging somewhere calm. And when that feeling vanished, so did the loyalty. The irony is that everything looks the same. The same menu boards, the same green logo, the same clean ingredients promise. But what people remember isn't the color of the walls. It's how they felt sitting under them. Panera stopped being a cafe that welcomed you to stay. Now, it's a business that wants you to move along. Because when comfort becomes corporate, it's not just the atmosphere that changes. It's the reason people show up at all. And that shift set the stage for something even bigger. The moment Wall Street walked in and bought the soul of the bakery. Number 8. The private equity problem. In 2017, Panera Bread was sold for $7.5 billion. The buyer was JAB Holding Company, a private equity giant that already owned Krispy Kreme, Pret A Manger, and Einstein Bros Bagels. To most people, it just looked like another big business deal. But if you've followed the restaurant industry long enough, you know how this story usually ends. Private equity moves in. They streamline, centralize, optimize words that sound efficient on paper, but in reality, they mean one thing: cuts. For Panera, those cuts went deep. Overnight bakers gone, fresh dough programs reduced, ingredients simplified to save on cost. And that smell of fresh bread that once defined the brand, it's now shipped in from regional commissaries. Inside the stores, the change was subtle but unmistakable. The food was still served warm, but the heart was gone. Panera stopped being a bakery cafe and started feeling like a franchise assembly line. Everything was uniform: the layout, the lighting, even the tone of the emails sent to employees. What used to be a business built on neighborhood warmth was suddenly run like a spreadsheet. Investors weren't thinking about community, they were thinking about quarterly returns, and it showed. Panera began pushing subscription coffee programs, online ordering, delivery apps, anything that could bump revenue fast, even if it chipped away at the in-store experience. The cafes that once felt like safe havens for students and remote workers now felt transactional, in and out. No second cup, no slow afternoon. You can see it in the small things: bread that tastes flatter, soup that feels reheated, staff that look too busy to talk, and dining rooms that echo instead of hum. JAB's move wasn't unique, it was a pattern. Private equity firms buy beloved brands, strip away what makes them special, and sell efficiency as success. But the numbers rarely tell the whole story. You can measure profit, not attachment. And once the attachment is gone, it doesn't matter how clean the balance sheet looks, the customers won't come back. Panera went from a cafe people loved to a product people tolerated. It's not that they failed to grow, it's that they grew past what made them worth loving. And when the heart of a brand starts shrinking, even the menu starts to lose its identity. Number 7. The menu confusion. For years, Panera's menu was simple, familiar, and comforting. The same soups, sandwiches, and bread bowls, things you didn't have to think about. You could walk in, order your favorite you pick two, and know exactly what you were getting. That consistency was part of the charm. Panera didn't need to chase trends because it already had trust. But over time, that menu became a moving target. One month, there's a warm grain bowl. The next month, it's gone replaced by flatbread pizza or something called charged lemonade. Customers would walk in expecting the food they loved, only to find their favorites quietly missing from the board. It started to feel unstable, like a brand that didn't know what it wanted to be. Was it healthy? Comfort food? A cafe? The answer kept changing, depending on which marketing team was in charge that quarter. Even loyal regulars felt lost. You'd hear the same frustration over and over. They got rid of my favorite soup. The bread isn't the same. Why does everything feel smaller? And when a customer has to stop and ask what happened to their go-to meal, that's not curiosity, that's fatigue. Panera's strength was never innovation. It was familiarity. The smell of fresh bread, the comfort of routine, the reliability of small pleasures. But the constant menu experiments broke that rhythm. And when food becomes unpredictable, people start looking for consistency elsewhere. It wasn't just what Panera added, it was what it erased. The signature items, the heart of the menu, began to vanish. And each change made the brand a little harder to recognize. Some blamed inflation. Some said the supply chain made certain recipes harder to sustain. But behind the scenes, it was something simpler: efficiency. Fewer ingredients meant lower costs, faster prep, and easier training. The food became less about flavor and more about logistics. What once felt hand-touched now feels pre-approved. And when the menu loses meaning, so does the brand. Because Panera wasn't just selling soup and bread, it was selling reliability, a quiet promise that what you loved yesterday would still be waiting tomorrow. That promise is gone now, and as the food lost its soul, the prices started to rise. A quiet frustration began to settle in, and the customers who stayed loyal started asking the hardest question of all: why am I paying more for less? Number 6. The price creep. For a long time, people didn't mind that Panera was a little pricey. You paid more because it felt like you were getting something better: fresh bread, quality ingredients, a calm place to eat. It wasn't cheap, but it felt fair. That balanced value for comfort kept people coming back. But in the years after the buyout, that balance vanished. Prices started climbing faster than portions. And suddenly, you pick two. Once a clever deal became a punchline. Half a sandwich, a small cup of soup, and a drink could easily pass $15. Add a pastry or coffee, and you were brushing $20. Customers didn't complain at first. They just noticed. The bread felt thinner. The soup cup looked smaller. The salads had more lettuce and fewer toppings. A quiet sense of disappointment settled in, not outrage, just fatigue. Online, the shift became impossible to ignore. Post after post compared old photos of Panera's meals with the new ones. Bigger plates, smaller food, higher bills. It's a formula that never ends well. Panera blamed inflation and ingredient costs, but the truth runs deeper than economics. The brand lost its emotional margin, that invisible space where people feel okay paying a bit extra because they trust the experience. When the experience weakens, the extra cost starts to feel insulting. People don't measure value in dollars. They measure it in memory. And for many, the memory of Panera was cozy afternoons, generous portions, and meals that made them feel cared for. Now it's receipts that make them pause. Even the regulars, the ones who used to order the same meal every week, began to cut back. They'd stop in less often, or skip the drink, or start going to Chipotle instead. And little by little, that loyalty eroded. Price creep doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow bleed. And by the time the brand realizes what's happened, the damage is already baked in. Because value isn't just what's on the plate, it's what's left in the customer's heart after they pay. And when that emptiness grows, no amount of marketing can fill it. By the time Panera noticed the frustration, the next scandal had already started. One that would expose just how far they drifted from their fresh everyday promise. Number 5. The frozen truth. For years, Panera sold one powerful idea that everything was fresh. The dough was made in-house. The soups were simmered from scratch. The mac and cheese? Baked daily in warm ceramic bowls. That's what people believed. It's what the commercials showed: steam, flour, smiles, perfection. Then the internet did what it always does. It told the truth. A viral TikTok showed a Panera employee dunking a sealed plastic bag of mac and cheese into boiling water, cutting it open, pouring it into a bowl, and serving it to customers who thought they were eating something homemade. The video blew up. Millions watched it. And just like that, the illusion cracked. People didn't just see a cooking shortcut, they saw betrayal. Because fresh was more than marketing. It was the foundation of trust. And when that word starts to feel fake, everything else does too. Panera's management tried to explain. They said, it's not frozen, it's refrigerated. And that centralized prep helps maintain consistency across thousands of stores. Technically true, but that didn't matter. What people saw was a brand that built its empire on authenticity, now caught microwaving its own story. Behind the counter, the shift was bigger than one viral video. The overnight bakers, the artisans who gave Panera its name, were being cut. Their ovens replaced by delivery trucks that brought par-baked loaves ready to finish on site. The result? Bread that looked the same, but didn't feel the same. The texture was off. The smell faded faster. And that just-baked soul was gone before the first bite. Even the soups, once described as crafted fresh daily, now arrived pre-made, sealed in bags, labeled and timed for efficiency. Employees followed the script. Customers never asked. But when the truth surfaced, it confirmed what many already suspected. Panera wasn't baking anymore. It was reheating, and maybe that's the real heartbreak. Not that the food changed, but that the honesty did. Because in an industry built on image, authenticity is the one ingredient you can't fake for long. The frozen truth was out. And as the disappointment spread online, Panera's next controversy would prove the damage wasn't just about food. It was about trust, health, and something far more dangerous hiding in a cup. Number 4. The Charged Lemonade Scandal. It started as a marketing win. A bright yellow cup. A promise of clean energy. Panera called it Charged Lemonade. A refreshing alternative to coffee, packed with caffeine and natural flavors. The idea sounded perfect for the brand. A fun twist for a younger crowd, something viral for social media. And viral it became, just not the way they hoped. Customers began realizing the numbers didn't add up. A single large charged lemonade contained more caffeine than a Red Bull and a Monster combined. It wasn't a light pick-me-up. It was a shock to the system. At first, the warnings came from online health bloggers, then from parents, then from hospitals. By late 2023, lawsuits started appearing, families claiming their loved ones had suffered heart issues, even deaths, after drinking it. The kind of headlines no cafe chain ever wants to see. Panera responded quietly. They added tiny warning labels. They adjusted the menu descriptions. But the damage was done. The drink that was supposed to make the brand look bold made it look careless. People started asking bigger questions. How could a company that once built its image around clean eating and wholesome food miss something so obvious? How could a brand that printed calorie counts on napkins ignore a caffeine bomb in a lemonade? Inside stores, employees didn't know what to say. Some refused to serve it. Others joked nervously that it was Panera's most dangerous drink. And customers started filming, holding their lemonades up to the camera, pointing to the fine print that read, "Contains 390 milligrams of caffeine." That's almost 4 cups of coffee from a lemonade. What made it worse wasn't the mistake, it was the silence. Panera's transparency, once its strongest trait, turned into damage control. Instead of owning the problem, they tried to move past it. But in the digital age, nothing moves past you. The lawsuit headlines spread. TikToks exploded. Late-night hosts made jokes. And just like that, charged lemonade became a symbol, not of innovation, but of how far Panera had drifted from the values it sold for decades. It wasn't just about a drink. It was about a pattern. A company once obsessed with fresh and clean was now synonymous with frozen and reckless. Thank you for watching. In fine lad down. And once health becomes a liability, you can't market your way back to trust. The charged lemonade was supposed to energize the brand. Instead, it drained what little credibility Panera had left. And that confusion, the question of what the brand even stood for anymore, would become its next and most personal problem. Number 3, the identity crisis. There was a time when Panera knew exactly who it was. It was the warm middle ground between a greasy drive-thru and a sit-down restaurant. Fresh bread, real food, a place you could feel good about. Simple, consistent, clear. But somewhere in the last few years, that identity fell apart. In its rush to chase trends, Panera tried to be everything, and in doing so, became nothing. One month, it was a bakery cafe. The next, a tech-driven coffee subscription service. Then came grocery store products, frozen mac and cheese, and even take-home soups. The lines between Panera the restaurant and Panera the brand blurred until customers couldn't tell what it stood for anymore. Inside stores, that confusion shows up everywhere. Some cafes look like minimalist coffee bars. Others still resemble the old neighborhood bakeries. The tone of the ads doesn't help. One commercial promises clean eating. Another promotes double bacon melts. Healthy or indulgent. Organic or comfort food. Fast or slow. Panera can't decide. So customers have. They go somewhere else. This identity crisis isn't just about branding, it's about purpose. The company that once promised food as it should be now markets coffee, refills, and drive-through lanes. The emotional core, the sense that Panera cared about how you felt after eating there, has been replaced by corporate messaging and subscription metrics. Even loyal fans can't define it anymore. Ask 10 people what Panera is, and you'll get 10 different answers. It's a coffee shop. It's a sandwich place. It's overpriced soup. That fragmentation kills loyalty. Because customers don't stay for variety, they stay for identity. And maybe that's the tragedy here. Panera didn't lose its audience. It just stopped speaking their language. The brand that once made you feel grounded now feels confused. You don't know whether to sit, scroll, or drive away. It's the kind of confusion that doesn't cause outrage, it causes apathy. And apathy is the hardest thing for a brand to fix. Because when people stop arguing about whether you're good or bad, they've already decided you're irrelevant. Panera once stood for something simple: wholesome food, human pace, honest quality. Now it's a brand in search of itself, and the world's already moved on. And that world now includes dozens of competitors. Younger, clearer, and hungrier, ready to take everything Panera once owned. Number 2, the competition takeover. When Panera launched, it owned the future. It was fast casual before anyone even called it that. A little bit of comfort, a little bit of class. Something in between a drive-thru and a dining room. But time has a way of catching up, and while Panera stayed comfortable, everyone else evolved. Chipotle refined simple and fresh into an empire. Sweet Green made salads feel premium and modern. Even Starbucks once just coffee built full lunch menus that mirrored what Panera used to do best. And then there's Chick-fil-A, with faster service, cleaner operations, and a reputation for consistency Panera once had. Slowly, Panera's space in the market began to shrink. It wasn't the healthy option anymore. It wasn't the trendy one either. It was just there. A familiar logo surrounded by lines forming at newer, faster, cooler places. Walk through any suburban plaza today, and you'll see it. The Chipotle next door is packed. Sweet Green has a line out the door. And Panera? Quiet. Half-filled tables. A self-checkout kiosk blinking "Next order, please." The truth is, Panera didn't just lose to competitors. It lost the narrative. It stopped being aspirational. Younger customers don't see it as part of their world. To Gen Z, Panera feels like something their parents liked. The brand never learned how to speak in a new language. Even its digital efforts, loyalty apps, delivery partnerships, coffee subscriptions, felt like attempts to mimic the very companies that had already moved ahead. While others made eating feel effortless, Panera made it feel complicated and expensive. The irony is painful. Panera taught America that lunch could be fresh and fast, and then forgot how to deliver it. In an era of brand identity, Panera has become invisible. No longer a movement, no longer a mood, just another beige restaurant on the corner. And that's the most dangerous place for any brand to be. Not hated, not loved, just ignored. Because when the competition starts defining what you used to stand for, you're not just losing customers, you're losing history. And by the time Panera realized how far behind it had fallen, there was only one thing left to lose: the trust of the very people who built it in the first place. Number 1. The broken promise. At the heart of Panera's rise was something bigger than food. It was trust. Trust that what you were eating was honest. Trust that the company cared about quality, about people, about the experience. It was that quiet belief that made you drive a little farther, pay a little more, and feel good about it. But trust doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes. One smaller portion, one missing menu item, one headline about a lawsuit or a frozen meal that wasn't supposed to be frozen. Each moment chips away at something invisible. Panera's story isn't about greed or failure, it's about distance. The bigger it grew, the farther it drifted from the reason it started. What began as a neighborhood bakery cafe turned into a billion-dollar machine, selling subscriptions and slogans. And that human warmth, the thing that once made Panera different, got lost in the noise of progress. You can feel it the moment you walk in now. The smell is the same, but the energy isn't. The bread looks perfect, but it tastes tired. The people behind the counter are polite, but the smiles don't reach their eyes. It's the kind of change you can't measure in profit, only in silence. Because when customers stop caring enough to complain, that's when a brand truly dies. Panera didn't collapse overnight. It slowly faded out of people's lives. Not because the food was terrible, but because the feeling was gone. The sense that you were part of something honest, something that treated lunch as more than a transaction. Now, Panera feels like a company trying to remember who it used to be. Launching new menus, testing new tech, hoping to reignite what's already burned out. But nostalgia can't rebuild trust. And discounts can't buy back belief. The brand that once stood for warmth and transparency now stands for something colder. A reminder of how easily good intentions can be replaced by corporate routine. The bread is still warm, but the promise that came with it, that's what went stale. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Panera didn't fall because people stopped eating there. It fell because people stopped feeling there. Panera Bread didn't fall with a crash. It faded one price hike, one shortcut, one forgotten promise at a time. What was once a symbol of warmth and honesty became a mirror of what happens when a company stops listening. The food stayed warm, but the feeling went cold. And maybe that's the real story here. Not how Panera failed, but how something we trusted became just another brand on the map.